details of the configuration in the user interface. And this is then, of course, the next thing that we will do. We finished yesterday with a few questions as examples for the exam. So Nadine, you did not miss too much. So we just had a few minutes, and the questions that we looked at were mainly about the difference between direct ID and identification with ID tablet. So if you know that already, so then yeah, you did not miss anything. And so we can then now directly continue. So what is my plan for now? I will first show you this presentation about the user tools and features, just to show you a few details about specific user tools. And then later, when we are at that point to talk about the user tools, then you have already the basic information, and we can then go into the details in the user interface accordingly. So yes, in fact, the user tools and the features can be configured in the editing settings of the user interface configuration. So this is here in this section. Here, configure tools and annotations. If we click on this, then we get here this list of all tools, and we can enable or disable the tools. And of course, it makes also in this case sense only to enable the tools which are needed and will be used, because otherwise it is maybe a bit a bit confusing for the user if they have a lot of tools in the drop downs in the toolbar of the editing that they will never use, and just may lead to confusion. And so, of course, you can discuss this with the customer, with the operators, what they want to have, what they really need, what they sometimes need. Then, of course, it should also be switched on. Okay, so that's about this configuration page. We will see this then later again. And then here in this presentation, we have here a few tools where I just give you a bit more information. And yes, there are special tools. For example, this freehand rotate. Of course, these are tools which are so-called payable options. This means in the normal base license, this is not included, and if the customer wants to have this feature, then they need the appropriate optional license, and of course they have to pay for that then accordingly, that they can have and use it. And it may also depend on the software version. This means if you have a very old software version installed on the system, then certain new features are, of course, also not available, even if the license would be included accordingly. So this means you may then also check, is this in this software version which is used there, is this feature already present? Anyway, in most of the cases, it's best idea always to be on the latest version when you install and configure a system for your customer. Okay, now a few details about some tools. First of all, the story of the calibration of measurements. So here, when you go to this measurement drop-down, then you can find here not only the linear measurement and the angle measurement. There are also some other tools. Only to mention it, here we have, for example, leg length difference measurement or scoliosis measurement. Yeah, this is also a payable option, and if the customer needs that, it may be interesting. But in fact, you could also do the same measurements using here this tool, and then using a calculator to calculate the difference. So it's of course, yeah. Let's not talk about too much about these tools. More interesting is here this, and this one which is grayed out here. So these are the so-called calibrations for measurements. Now, first of all, why do we need to calibrate for a measurement? The reason is we have always, when we expose and get an image, we always have the so-called magnification factor in the image. This is just because of the reason is we have a certain distance between the focal spot and the middle of the detector. This is the so-called SID, so the source image distance. And our object that we X-ray, so our patient, is somewhere in between. And there is always a certain distance between the patient and the detector. And this means the closer you come with your patient to the focal spot, the larger the object that we see in the image will be. And so there is this magnification. And if you want to measure, for example, the size of an organ or a bone in the image, then yes, we have to consider that there is this magnification factor. And a possibility to yes, to compensate this magnification factor is such a calibration. So what do we have to do to get such a calibration done? We have here these two possible calibrations. This is linear calibration or circular calibration, and there is also this calibration which only works if the system already knows the SID. This means this is then something which is then, for example, present if you have a fully automatic modality like a DR600, then the system can internally calculate the SID, and then you only have to enter as a value for the compensation of the of this magnification factor the distance of your object that you want to measure to the detector. And so if you have the detector in the buggy of the table, the patient is laying on the table, then you may already know, okay, we have about 8 centimeters between the surface of the detector and the surface of the table. And then we just have to look, okay, the bone that I want to measure is maybe when the patient lays there, again, 10 centimeters above the table. So on the whole, we have 18 centimeters. And this is then the value that we have to enter in this function to get the calibration done. But as said, so this only works if the system knows the SID. And now let's also talk about here these two tools. How does it work? Yes, first thing is we click the calibration button, so this linear or circular, and then we have to define a starting point and the end point. For the circular calibration, it's 3 points, because as a graphical element in the annex, when we draw a circle, it's always defined by 3 points on the circle line of the circle. And yeah. Now, what starting point and end point can we use? In fact, for this, we may need a certain reference object, which is then also placed in the same distance to the detector as the patient or as that bone or whatever we want to measure is located. So if the so we could, for example, place a simple example, just a coin where we know the diameter is 3 centimeters or 3.2 centimeters, maybe just besides the patient, and it has to be in the range of the exposure that we see it in the image, and it has to be in the same distance to the detector as the patient or the bone that we want to measure is located. So we may have to put it maybe on some object on a plastic or foam block which has the right height, that it is in the right position. And then yes, when we have this reference object in the image, then we can yes, define a starting point and the end point. Or if we talk about a coin where we know the diameter, then we could also use the circular calibration and just define 3 points around calibration value in centimeters. So in case of the coin, we would then enter this 3.2 centimeters. And when we then click on OK, then after that, we can then perform this calibrated measurement. In fact, the main condition here is that, of course, all measurements, all linear measurements in the image are then will then be calibrated, that we perform after this calibration. But we have to make sure that what we measure is then, of course, also in the same layer, in the same distance to the detector. If we want to measure two bones and one is closer to the detector as the other one, then we may do it in that way that when we have the image received, when the image is acquired, we make first a copy of this image so that we have the same image 2 times in our user interface, in our image overview. The one image we calibrate then for the one distance, the other image we can then calibrate for another distance. And then, of course, also if we have the appropriate reference objects in the image, and then we can measure these 2 different measurements with the right calibrations. Yeah, of course, this is only applicable if we really want to know the real size of a bone or an organ or any other object. And this means, in this case, then we need, of course, these calibrations. Yeah, we will see this then also later in the user interface, and I can also demonstrate and show it to you. Now, another feature is we can change the color of graphical objects in our images. So graphical objects, these are annotations, but also if you draw a measurement or any other graphical object like a line, a circle, a grid, and we can change the color of this either just by selecting this object, then right mouse button opens here this context menu, and here we have then this drop down to select a color. You see we have only 6 colors, so that's the limit. But this should be enough, for example, to make an annotation better visible, and just to show this is more important by selecting green or red, depending on what we want to have. And the default color is always this light gray. This means sometimes this light gray is almost not visible in the image because maybe the mean value that we have in the image is also this light gray. And so then in this case, it makes sense, of course, to change the color to just to make it better visible. Now, what is we have also besides this context menu that we can use directly in the image with the right mouse button, is also here. We can also add here this drop down of the colors in our toolbar. Then the course of action is when we have added this annotation or graphical object, then we select this graphical object. If it is not already selected, then we go here to our drop down in the toolbar to change the color. Yeah, one important thing is to know is, of course, if we then print this image after we have changed the color of an annotation, the result will be that this graphical object is again converted into a grayscale value, depending to a grayscale value which matches best to the appropriate color. So this blue is then a bit darker, of course, than, for example, this yellow. And so with this you can also it's also possible to have an annotation a bit better visible also in the printed image if you select a color which brings that result accordingly. And so for the printer, it's clear we can only print grayscale variations when we send such an image with a changed color of an annotation to an PAX archive. And if this GSPS, you remember, this is what I also talked about a bit when exporting DICOM images, for example, and this GSPS is also available as a function when we configure the archive. Then, yes, if GSPS is not configured, then it is the same as it is a printed image. Then the graphical elements in the image will be converted into a certain grayscale value. So also when we change the color, and will be part of the pixel file. So this is then also something we should know when we want, or when the customer wants, that the graphical elements are still something that can be modified then on PAX side. Then PAX has to support the GSPS, and of course you have then also to configure this accordingly in the annex, and maybe also in the archive that it is available, and that you can then forward the images in that way that they can still change the annotations.
Andreas,
yes.
Can you just quickly explain what the GSPS is?
Yeah, so GSPS, I don't know by heart what's the words of this abbreviation. So this is a grayscale function that so when you forward this image to the archive without GSPS, then this additional graphical elements like annotations will be part of the pixel file. And with GSPS, they are graphical elements that can still be used and changed and removed from the image if this is required. You can also move it to a different position if you want to see the details then under this graphical element. Is this clear? Is this?
I mean, yeah, it is. Thank you.
The GSPS is for DICOM grayscale presentation status, is a DICOM requirement. There is for example, annotation, colors, or a lot of things to do with user tools. They are included to this DICOM parts. And for more information, you can find it in the service manual of in X. There is more details of these functions. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Abdallah. Exactly, that's the case. So, and you also told us that this grayscale presentations. What was it? Presentation status. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's of course for the customers it may be important that they can also later change the annotations and measurements and everything then also on PAX side, and so most PAX archives support this function, and it just has to be configured in that way that it works correctly. Okay, so that's about the colors of the annotations. Then zoom to region of interest. In fact, this is here with this button in the drop-down of the zoom functions. This means with this, when you select this, then you just draw a rectangle on that region that you want to see, and it will then zoom your display of the image to the maximum available scale factor for this specific region. And so this is we will see this then also later in the appropriate. So when I show you this in the editing. Now the next option that we talk about is the freehand rotate. So by default, we have this rotate clockwise and rotate counterclockwise available in the tools. So we can also, for example, make this available in the examination as a button. And this is always, you rotate always by 90 degrees. So if you click rotate clockwise 2 times, then yes, you have your image upside down, rotated by 180 degrees, but we have nothing in between with these functions, and that's the reason why the customer may want to have this freehand rotate. And it is a payable option. This means also for this, the appropriate license is required, and it's available as an optional license, and then the technical license will be in the list, and it can be applied. So, okay, that's what is mentioned here, the story of how to use it in a central monitoring station. So if you use the CMS, the central monitoring station, and we will see this then also this afternoon, then certain functions can be also executed on the central monitoring station, but the condition and the the rule is that then the license has to be available on the NX workstation that is visited by the central monitoring station. If not, and you try to use the freehand rotate with CMS on an NX workstation, but the license is not there on this NX workstation, then you will get such an error message as it is shown here. Now, how does it work? Of course, first of all, our freehand rotate has to be available with the license and it has to be enabled. We can also put a freehand rotate button into the examination, by the way. And yes, when we click this button in editing or in examination, then yes, it will first check, are there already any manipulations done on this image? So was it rotated by 90 degrees? Were there any annotations put into the image after it was acquired or anything else? And if this is the case, then you get a message that it will revert this image to its original state prior to the proceeding. And this means you can then say, yes, please revert. Then, of course, you have later, after you have done this freehand rotate function, you have to repeat this changes, add these annotations or whatever. Or if you say no, then, of course, it stops using the freehand rotate tool. And yes, and then it continues. If you say yes, then you can continue with this freehand rotate function. Here the story of auto-cropped images. So in fact, this just means that the image that you rotate also contains the pixels which are behind that auto-collimated area, behind the black border. And yeah, so yeah, it's not so important. This means if you then, for example, remove the auto-collimation or hide the black border, then you will see still also this area behind in the appropriate new position after the rotation. Now, how does it work? We have here, for example, this button freehand rotate in our editing. If you click this for an image, then if you have made some changes, for example, if you have added an annotation or something else like this, then you get this message. And if you then say yes, then it will revert this. If you say no, it will just go back and will not do this freehand rotate. And yes, if you click on yes, or if there is nothing to revert, then we get as a next step here this view where we have this image. We have here this circle and here these lines. And with this, if you just put our mouse on the circle and drag it around, then we can instantly rotate our image in a fine scale until we have found that position that we want to have. And then when we click on accept, it will apply this. If we click on cancel, then it goes back and does not rotate the image. And yeah, if we click on accept, then it may take a few seconds because it will then yes, recalculate the whole pixel matrix of the image for the new position, for the new rotated position, and then yeah, it will you will see it then also in the in the image in the user interface accordingly. So yeah, okay, the collimation functions, here we have the possibility for any manual collimation. So we can either have automatic collimation, or if we want to do this, then we can also say, no, I want to have this collimation made manually. This means then the automatic collimation detects the collimation border in the image. The manual collimation allows to draw a certain shape. This can be a rectangle or also a polygon. And if the license is a license for a circular collimation is there, you can also draw a circle. And when you then select this as the element for the collimation, then it will apply this accordingly. And this is then like this. So this is, by the way, this is the result of our freehand rotation. Sorry. So
Yeah.
if we apply
Andreas?
here this freehand rotation, then we have this result. And now let's try and see how the collimation works. Where is the question? Yes, Karen?
Yes. What version of music is necessary for free rotation?
So it has not too much to do with the Musica version. So you can have it with Musica 2, you can have it with Musica 3. In fact, what you need in this case is a certain minimum version of the NX. All newer versions, I would say, since version 9000 should be sufficient. And you need the optional license. So the license for freehand rotate and also for circular collimation are available as options. So the customer can order and buy this. And when this is then included in the license, then they can apply this functionality. Shakila, you also have a question?
Yes,
Thank
please.
you.
I just wanted to ask, how do we know what features come with as a standard with the NX and what features need to be brought as an additional license?
Yeah, so in fact, if you remember, on Monday I showed you this this Excel sheet where you have the possibility to see in these tables which base licenses can be combined with which optional licenses.
Okay.
And in the optional licenses in this document, you can also see what technical licenses are included. This is the one possibility. The other possibility is you can also look this up in ELMS.
Okay.
So let me just show you. So if we go here to classic ELMS, here we have these tables. For example, software releases. Now, where is it? So software component find in ABC. So if I click on this, then I can enter here. Yeah, maybe let's first have a look.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you need then, of course, the proper name of the appropriate technical license, and this is you can find this, for example, here when you look here into the list of the technical licenses, and then let's now just try this with the circular collimation. So here, this is the feature that I want to see, and then I can go here to my software component, find in ABCs. I enter here my NX circular collimation as it is shown. I can also select show version. This can also be interesting in this case. Then, of course, and if I click on find in ABCs, then you see that this is included in the option NX Advanced Image Manipulation. And you see also for which versions it is available. And you can get this feature also in central monitoring.
Yeah.
And there are also
Andreas.
some other functions, see productivity package, for example. Yes,
sorry, Andreas. There is another way to get such matrix. Maybe you can ask the sales guys, Shakila. They have a separate Excel sheets.
Yeah.
They use it just for sales. There is a good overview which license is basics and which other is options. It's more useful as this one from LMS.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I will check if I find this sheet. I will share to you.
Sure. I was just wondering, just in case, like a customer says to me, they want a specific a specific feature, how would I, know whether it comes with the package as standard or whether I can say to them, you would need to get in contact with the appropriate people to buy that as an additional feature?
Exactly. There is in the Excel sheet what I told you. There is a RPC codes which the sales use it for order.
Hello?
Then you
Yeah.
can give him this RPC code for to order the required feature he needs.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Perfect. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, thank you, Abdella. Then, yes, let's just now have a look here for, yes, how to apply a circular collimation. Yeah, so if you have here this image and if you want to use here instead of the automatic collimation, the circular collimation, then the first step would be, and I suppose it looks like it was already done here in this case, you have first to switch off the automatic collimation. This means if you click on this button, then you get rid of the automatic collimation and you are then in this status that you can apply the manual collimation. And this means next step is then to draw the circle. This means we click on this button, then we can draw the circle. And in this case, here we have just to define the circle again with 3 points. As always, when we use this draw a circle function in the annex, and then yes, we have this circle defined by these 3 points, and then next step is to apply this collimation, and then this yes, the result will be like this. In fact, here it has then also be zoomed in that it is because everything which is outside would then not be interesting. And what else we can see, by the way, here you see here we have here this semi-transparency of the black border function. This is what we saw yesterday when I showed you in the general configuration this feature which you can enable, and then also define a certain transparency factor or a percentage for the transparency. So this is maybe black border maybe 80%. This means yeah, it comes out at about 20% of the image in this case. So yeah, just that you have seen that once. Yeah, what else we can do with this manual collimation? We can also invert a collimation area. So if you have here a circle, it could also be a rectangle or a polygon. We can use here this button, which is here in this image, in this screenshot, is grayed out at the moment because to apply this, you have first to select this collimation area, so the circle in this case. Then if you click on this button, then it will mark this area with lines that you see, okay, it is now used as an inverted collimation. Then when you apply the collimation, this will be the result. So you may ask, what is the reason for that? Why should we use that? One possible reason could be, for example, if you have a metal implant in this joint of the patient, which is solid metal. This means the radiation is blocked very much, and the result will be in this area of this implant, you will have almost white in the image. And if you want to see details close to this in the bones, then this is maybe not optimal for the viewing conditions. And you can then just simply say, okay, then I draw maybe a polygon on my implant with this collimation function, invert this area and apply this and cover it with black or with semi-transparency in this case. And then, yes, you may see the details close to it a bit better. Yeah, just in case if this is required. Okay, then the next story is here the catheter processing. So the purpose of catheter processing is, of course, to see certain routings of any cables and catheters which are on the patient or also in the patient better, and especially, for example, for specific treatments. And then normally, if you have make a radiography image of that, it can be the case that you cannot see the catheter routings as it is required. And with catheter processing, you can then enhance these routings in a way that it is better, it may be better visible. So this is not a good example for that, because these catheters are visible good enough, and there is also not very much change then with the catheter processing. Yeah, just to explain how this works, if you have the license for catheter processing, then you can also configure in the exam tree for each specific or for each exposure type separately, should it be possible to apply catheter processing or not. And if this is enabled for a specific exposure type and you have an image with this, then yes, you also may configure this button CATH in your user interface to have it available for this. And then, yes, you have such an image. And if you then just simply click on the CATH button for catheter processing, it will not directly apply the catheter processing on this image. It makes first a copy of this, because the original image may also be important and should not be changed. And so then the second image or the second instance of the image will then be catheter processed. So in fact, from a technical point of view, there is also a specific image processing package for catheter processing, which is then used for this. And in fact, if you compare these two images, you will see it does not improve the image quality in that way, as we would expect this maybe. Even here we have some grainy image, it's dotted, because yeah, the functionality is, the only purpose of this function is to see the routings of the catheters better. And that's also why it makes here this copy. And just not to forget this, it also puts then automatically here this marker CATH into the image to indicate this image has been catheter processed. Yes, and then another possibility would be, for example, that we then enable the split view, where we can then put, for example, the original image on the left side, the catheter processed image on the right side, and have zoom in as it is required, and then see the details as it is needed and as it is desired. Okay. Another feature is the full screen mode. So if the license is there and if it is enabled and available, then you can have it as a button, and then it shows the currently selected image in full screen mode. This means, yes, the toolbars, the buttons here at the bottom will disappear. Also the image overview, and we see here the image just on the in the full screen view. We have here some controls. These are these arrows. With them, we can go to the previous or next image in the same study. Of course, only if there are more images in the study. And then here with this, you can just simply go back to the previous view with the normal user interface. Yeah. Okay. So this was this presentation. And now let's just have a look at the user interface configuration. So in the configuration tool of the NX, here the section user interface available here with this button, or also on the home screen here with this. Then we go here to user interface configuration. We have here 4 sections. We have general settings, then settings for the work list, for examination, and for editing. And let me just go through that one by one. The general settings here, it starts here with the theme. If you remember, on Monday I told you we have this new color option since version 20, where we have the choice between the blue layout and the green layout. And we have these 3 options here: default, legacy, or nice. Default means it looks into the license and uses then either the green or the blue layout, depending on what is reasonable for this license. Or we say, no, I want to have it in green, then I select legacy, or I want to have it in blue, then I select nice. Then person name composition. So here we have these 5 parts of a name in this drop down. So in these 5 drop downs, and I can change the order. I can say yes, prefix at the first position, suffix at the last position. That's correct. But I want to have here prefix, first name, middle name, last name, suffix. Then I can change this here. I go here to last name and say, no, here I want to have first name. Now you see immediately when I change this, then it sees, okay, I have now first name 2 times, and this is then marked here with the arrows. So just to make sure that we do not forget then also to correct this. And then finally also this. And then, of course, when each of them is just once, we have then no errors anymore. And this is now the new order, how our names will be displayed in the user interface. This will then also be applied, for example, we see later than this current patient switch. So this and for any position in the configuration or in the user interface where a name is displayed, where we have these 5 parts of the name, then this order will be applied. Okay, person name representation. Here we have the choice between normal, ideographic, or phonetic. So if you have a language which uses just the normal Latin alphabet, then there is no need to change anything. You just leave here the default, which is normal. But if you have a language like Greek, maybe also Russian or Asiatic languages like Chinese or Japanese or whatever, then you have a different character set, which and then here we have the choice either to select ideographic. Ideographic means it will display the characters as they are. Then you will see this Greek name with the Greek alphabet. And if you select phonetic, then yes, this Greek word with the Greek alphabet will be converted into a representation in Latin alphabet. And this means there is an algorithm behind it knows if you have this Greek character, then the Latin representation of this character is this character or these characters. Sometimes you have more than one. And so it just rewrites the appropriate name in Latin alphabet to have it phonetic in the phonetic representation. Yeah, so this is just needed if you have a different character set, then you should change this maybe depending on what is required. And what you should also know in this case is if you want then to connect to this NX workstation with a central monitoring station or also with the Office Viewer software, then it is required that also on the CMS and the Office Viewer software, the same selection is made for this representation. This means for the Office Viewer software, for example, when you install it, then there is in that installation process, there is a question, what representation do you want to use? And then if you have here on the NX phonetic selected, then you have to select the same also for the Office Viewer or also the same in the CMS, that it is compatible for the transfer of the data and the images. Then here the next part, unit representation. So you see here it talks about dose area. So this is the dose area product unit. In fact, this is required if a dose area product meter is used, which is the sensor or that radiation measurement chamber, which is placed between the collimator or below the collimator in direction of the patient to measure how much dose for that appropriate area comes out of our tube. And depending on what dose area product meter we use, there are different types and different models available. We have to adapt here in the NX configuration the appropriate unit. So we have here the choice between microgray, centigrade, decigray, gray, and milligray. And for the area square centimeters, square decimeters, square meters, and square millimeters. And this means you just look into the details and information of the DAP meter that you want to install. And then, of course, you should not forget to adapt here this dose area unit to have it correct. This means when this value comes from this device and is written into the DICOM tag, then there may be a factor 10 or 100 or more if you have here the wrong unit selected. And so this is then, of course, required that it is selected correctly. So then let's go to the next section, image overview pane. So first, what is this? Yes, we have here in our image overview, always here the either here a thumbnail, an exposure thumbnail displayed, or also more if we configure this. And or here, if we have images, then it displays here the images accordingly. And this is not a good example. Let's try to find, yeah, here in this example, we can see there is also some text showing up in the image. In this case, it's just a digit. It's the accession number. But here in this section, in the configuration, we can configure what is displayed. So here for the exposure thumbnail, we have up to 3 values. By default, we have exam group, exposure type, and accession number. And for the images, for the image thumbnails, we have even 4 values that we can select and enter here. And so here by default, the accession number is shown. We could also select some more, like you see there is, of course, there are only DICOM tags which are reasonable for this purpose. So we could, for example, also show here the SPS description or exposure type. Yeah, so as it is required. So this can be selected here and then it will be applied accordingly. Current patient switch. Yes, now first, what is the current patient switch? The current patient switch is here on top when we are here in the examination. This is this drop down. When I click on it, then I get here all studies listed that are currently open. And I can then just say, okay, now I want to go to this study. And so then I'm here in this other study. And yes, what can we configure here? So by default, it is always showing here the patient name. And yes, here also by default, the patient birth date is enabled. And this will just show here the patient name as it is in the appropriate DICOM tag. And it adds then the other values in brackets behind if there is a value. So if there is no birth date in the DICOM tag, if it is empty, then it just shows the patient name in this case. And I can, of course, also add the other values here. So, for example, this number of images available and number of planned exposures. This means if you have a study with several exposure thumbnails, 2 of them have already been acquired, and there are, on the whole, there are 5 thumbnails. So 2 are acquired, 3 are not yet acquired. Then it will show here number of images available. This means 2, and number of planned exposures. This is then 5. So 2 of 5 will be shown then in brackets here behind our patient name. Let me see whether I can also demonstrate this. Yeah, here in my, yeah, here at least you can see there we have here the name chest 74 NIP versus PIP, and then in brackets a birth date. Yeah, so this is here this study. So this is the name, this is the birth date, and this is then displayed also here in the current patient switch. So configure external application. Yes, so here we have the possibility to add some additional function for this buttons that we have at the bottom of our window. And we can add one function to the worklist environment, another one to examination, one to editing, and also one to main menu. And let me just maybe demonstrate one as an example. I select here, I want to have such a button in the worklist environment. I give this button the name Edit. And I select here just simply the notepad. This should be, where is it? In System 32. And then let's just enter. Yeah, so here it is. This is my application notepad. I select this, I open it. Yes, and then let's just quickly activate this. So, and now the result should be that I have now an additional button in my worklist environment, and now you see it always gives us here the message found some malware. I have made some a virus scan this morning, and it did not find this viruses. After I have removed this malware, so it is possibly something going on here with some viruses, but it could also be a certain driver, which causes problems. Always when I start the user interface, it finds this, so it seems to be in relation also to the NX software. Maybe something is there is some function in the NX software which is considered by the virus scanner as a Trojan virus. Yeah, maybe it's not a problem, but of course I have already made a full scan of all NX workstations, and after removing this, it did not find anything else, so it is possibly just something related to the user interface of the NX. Okay, now here you see I'm now in the work list, and I have here this button Edit, and if I click on this, what does it do? It opens just simply my Notepad application with an empty file, and the purpose of this could be that the radiographer lets the patient in, has some questions, and wants to just quickly to note this down and then save it as a file somewhere in a folder on the hard disk. And then just a click on Edit, then we can enter here the text, the information, and save this then where we want to have it. Yeah, another possible reason could be that for troubleshooting, if there is if you have a certain problem with the NX, you escalate this. We also escalate this further to R&D. R&D says, okay, we cannot see very much in the log files about this issue, and we need more information. And then we have different possibilities for troubleshooting, but maybe the existing tools for troubleshooting are also not sufficient for that. Then they may just design a small application, quickly provide this application then to this NX Works or this a field service engineer who has the problem on an NX workstation, then you may install this tool on the NX PC and create a button, maybe with the name troubleshoot or something like that, and it may then be the instruction to the customer when you have again this error message, please click on the button troubleshoot, which will then just start this application, collect some data, save this as a zip file somewhere on the hard disk. You can then later just get this zip file and provide it to the appropriate R&D department for the analysis. Okay, so just that we have seen that, we can also configure also other buttons for other environments as it is required. Okay, so this was the first part here of the user interface configuration. Now let's continue here with the worklist settings. Also here, general section. Here we can enable to show a manual worklist. By default, we have always here in the worklist the closed exams list, the worklist, and here the search function. By the way, here with this you can also filter your worklist, for example, for a specific patient name. If you select here worklist and select here patient name, then maybe I just enter here M. I want to see the patient names which start with an M, and it's empty. Then let's query. There is now, yeah, it has, of course, it only works if we have something in our worklist. Now I see it shows here these names which start with an N. And yeah, so this is the function here, the search function. Yes, and we have here the worklist and closed exams, and it is possible to add another bar here with the name manual worklist. So if this is required, I did not see it too much that it was used, but if a customer needs that, then here it can be just be enabled, and then this manual worklist is available, but I can also use the appropriate functionality to have studies there. Okay, action buttons. So here, these are the buttons that we see here in this position here. At the moment, we have this four, or let's go to the worklist here. We have these 7 buttons available, and yeah, you see here we have this buttons with their names. If a button is used, then it is green, and if it is not enabled, then it is but available, then it is showing up like this. And so here, this is, if I would select here, show reuse patient data button, then it will and save this, so activate this new setting of the configuration, then it would also show this reused patient data as an additional button. Maybe just quickly, let's have a look what buttons we have. We have here show emergency exam button. This can be removed if emergency exam is not required. Next one, show new exam button. So it is grayed out. This means so it is enabled. This means this is a mandatory button which cannot be hidden. Then yes, show reuse patient data button. The purpose of this is if you have a certain exam and you select this exam, and then you see, okay, there are certain thumbnails coming from the RIS, just defined by the protocol codes. But it is necessary also to do some other exposures for this patient, which are not in this exam. But maybe there is the rule, if you have additional exposures to be made, then you should do this in an extra exam. You have to make a new one. You can either then click here on new exam and then enter the patient name and all the data, or if you want to be a bit quicker and you have this exam already, then you click on reuse patient data. It makes a copy of this exam. Of course, first of all, empty, no thumbnails, but all DICOM information of this patient is then already available in this study, and you can then just add the thumbnails where you want to have made some extra exposures. So manage lists, we know that already. I have shown this. This is to filter our work list, which comes from the RIS, or also to filter for a specific RIS device if you have more than one RIS. Transfer images. Yes, this is the function where you can move an image from one study to another study. And yes, just to show this in particular, if I'm here in my work list, and let's assume we have here this study with this 10 images. And now we see, okay, these 3 images here do not belong to this study. So they are wrong here. They belong to a completely different patient, for example. So someone has made a mistake and just added the thumbnails to the wrong study and then exposed and acquired the images. And now, yes, we have, of course, to do something to bring these images to the right study. And what can we do? We can here use in worklist this function transfer images. So first we select the study where the images are located. Then we click on transfer images. Then we select the images that we want to remove from here and to want to put it to a different study. So I select this and this and this. You see they are now just collected here. And then when I have selected all images that I want to move, then I click on continue. Next step is then to select the the study where I want to put these images in. Maybe yeah, maybe this one. Yeah, no, that's not a good example. Yeah, let's use this one. Here we have 2 images already, and I want to add these 3 images. Then, so next step is to click on the button continue. And then here you see this will be the result. We have now this, so as a result, we will have then 5 images in the study, the 2 images which were there already, and then new here these 3 other images which will be transferred. If I click on finish, then this will take place. I could, of course, also cancel this if I see no, it's not really necessary. I just tried, but I do not want to execute this. And this means now this is the result. We see here now these 5 images. And here in this study, these 3 images are not there anymore. We have now only the other images. So, okay, that's the functionality. We have these transfer images in the work list. Of course, this function only works if we have the 2 studies where we want to move the images between on this NX workstation in the appropriate closed exams or work list. And we cannot transfer images if the study where the images should be put in are on another NX workstation. So then in this case, it has to be done in a different way. By the way, we have also a function in examination which sounds similar. It's not enabled here. We will see this then later. It is called transfer study. The difference between transfer images in worklist and transfer study in examination is that here we can pick out single images out of all images that are in a study and move them. In examination, the transfer study only allows to to take all images of a study and move them somewhere else. So this is the difference between transfer images in the worklist and examination. We have transfer study. This means it moves only all images. Okay, so anything else? Okay, this edit button, this is what we have added just before. Query RIS is also clear. If a RIS is configured and selected, then with this button I can just trigger to update the worklist and start exam. Okay, so with this, when we select the study and click on start exam, it goes to examination and starts this exam. We could also just simply select the thumbnail and go to examination, then it is the same effect. Okay, so that's here this general settings in the worklist. Then the worklist itself can also be configured. So we have here first here these two columns on the left side. The first column is showing whether a study is open or not. So it shows here this, yes, this typical glasses icon if a study is open, or if not, then there this icon is not there. This second row is only displayed and available if artificial intelligence result is, or if the feature is present on the NX workstation, and if you have results, then it shows here an appropriate this symbol in an appropriate color. So this could be, for example, the IBEX tool. So this is a feature where you need an extra so-called smart box, which is connected to the NX workstation, and in the smart box it has the appropriate processors to analyze images with an artificial intelligence. So IBEX is also called bone health. It's for specific exposure types. It can look into the images and see is the bone density within a normal range, or is it too low? And so this means if it is then too low, it will indicate this here with an appropriate. So it will, of course, also show this in the image. It shows the appropriate result there. And yes, and here it is then indicated by an appropriate icon that we have here an AI result for this image or for this study. Then, yes, the next columns contain in text form the contents of the appropriate DICOM information of an image as it is configured. So we can go here, for example, to this row 3, where we have by default these 4 values selected. So you have always 4 values that you can select. You can also enter here a label. This will then be shown here on top. And yes, you can also select here which of this selected DICOM text should be used for sorting of this of the work list. When we click here on top, so if I want to sort my work list by the name, then okay, let's go to the work list, of course. If I want to sort it by the patient name, you see the value which is selected as the sort, so as the value for sorting, then this is printed in bold. And if I click then on here on top, then it sorts first just by alphabet. Then if I click again, then it reverts the sorting. You see this arrow indicates also in which direction it is sorted. And yes, then of course, if I click here to another row, then it applies the sorting for the other column accordingly. Yeah, and of course, we can also here configure here other values if you want, or here, and also apply the appropriate sorting if you have more than one value. And we have even 3 more columns available. So if you want to have more information visible in the work list, then we can configure this accordingly. And quite similar also here for the closed exams list. So also here we have these columns where we can show the appropriate values and text. And we have here also this initial columns with the icons. So also here showing here with the first row, it shows is a study open or has it been reopened. By the way, also if we import images, then it shows them here in closed exams, and they are also initially opened. Sorry. Then yes, the second row. Result of artificial intelligence functionality. Then if a study has been printed, this will be shown by such a symbol. As already mentioned, so if you have, for example, this N events enabled for the printing, then it may not directly show the green symbol. It may take a while until it turns green, because then it gets the feedback from the printer when the print has been completed. Then, okay, here for archived studies, for exported studies, so this means if you have here export automation enabled to burn the image or to collect the images in the buffer and to burn them then finally on a DVD. And if the burning has been completed of this study, then it shows here this green DVD symbol. Yeah, then here document symbol. This means if you have not only images in your study, if there is also a document added. One possible event where we get this symbol is, for example, if we apply on a certain image in the study a function from the orthogon tool. The orthogon tool is also available as an optional license, and it is an extra software which will be installed besides the NX software. And with this, you can apply some specific or a certain specific measurements in the images, which are not part of the normal editing. And this means when you have this orthogon tool available, then you can start it with a button in editing or in the examination section. Then it opens that tool and moves this image that you have currently selected also into this orthogon tool. Then you can select the measurement method. So there are several different measurement methods available for the different exposure types. And you have then a certain scheme where you have to, it shows where you have to mark the positions in the image. This can be, for example, if it's related to the spine, for each vertebra of the spine, maybe 4 points that you have to mark. And when all markings are made, then it measures and calculates the result and creates a small report out of this, which is then finally put back to the NX and is then shown together with the original image as the report. And then here this document icon will also be shown for this study. Yeah, here the last one indicates if a session has been locked. Let me also quickly show you what does it mean when we lock a session. So if you remember, I told you there is this automatic cleanup which deletes the oldest image and studies if certain limits are exceeded. So if you have too many images, too many studies, not enough space left on the hard disk, or also just the images are too old, depending on the selection and configuration in our general configuration. Then, of course, there may be the situation that the customer says, this is a very important study. This should just not be deleted automatically. Then, in this case, you can go here to the main menu and select here the function lock sessions. Then you get here the list of the studies which are available currently, and then you may decide, okay, this study is important. It's not allowed that this will be deleted. Then you lock this. You see this is now indicated by this key symbol, and also then here in the closed exams list, we see here this key symbol for this study, and then this study is protected from automatic deletion. It will not be deleted when the cleanup cycle sees, okay, there are too many studies. Maybe this is one of the oldest studies, but it should be protected, and so then this will not be deleted if it is locked. So, Abdella, you have put something into our chat. Let me just check. Yeah, okay, this is for everyone who is interested in the GSPS, here this is this explanation in the service manual about GSPS. You can see this in our chat. Oh no, I shouldn't have moved that. Okay, now it's better. Good. Let's come back.
I have 2 questions.
Yes.
I do not find the Notepad exe in my user interface. Yeah,
that's just if you you can also look for it here with the File Explorer. It's on the C drive.
Yes.
Then Windows.
Okay.
Then next folder that you need is System32 here.
Okay.
And then yes, if you scroll down, you may find it. It is here the applications are sorted by alphabet. That's interesting what it shows here. It's a bit slow in the transfer, but you can also just enter here Notepad in this search field.
Okay, I find.
And then you will find it. So in fact, this was just an example. So it's not necessary that you do the same as an exercise, but if you want, you can of course do this.
Okay.
Okay, good. Then yes, anything more? No, we have seen now everything. Maybe just to mention here, this show in user interface. This means if one of the rows is not in use, if then we just can remove this show in user interface. And of course, if we have rows or columns with content, then we want to see them, then we enable this with this hook show in user interface. Okay, that should be clear so far. Then you see here there is another section, search, but this is grayed out. The reason is simply there is nothing to configure. I suppose in R&D, maybe they have some plans for the future that they also make the search function configurable. Or maybe it was in a very old version something to configure, and then finally they decided no, we do not want to make this configurable anymore, and in the newer versions it's not available anymore. So yeah, this is, you can just ignore this. Also here you see this is grayed out, configure search lists, nothing to configure. That's why it's nothing. Or maybe it's in a specific license in CMS, for example, possible to configure the search list. I don't know by heart. Yeah, so that's the reason why we have here this this entry, but not available here on this license. Then yes, examination settings. Also here we have the buttons for examination. So first one here, external application. This is configured in the general section of user interface configuration. That's why it also grayed out here. And if we click on this button configure, then we jump just simply to this general section for the configuration. Then yes, the other buttons here, reject, unreject. So we could also remove this reject, unreject button if it is not allowed in your country, for example, to use the reject functionality at all. Then you may just simply remove the button also here. Then transfer session, as just mentioned. So you see it's not available here. It is also grayed out. So this means if this transfer session functionality is available, you just should simply know in the examination we can only move all images of a study to another one, but we cannot move single images. This is the function that we have in the work list. Yes, prior images. So if we have a prior archive, so an archive which provides prior functionality, and also if we have the license for to show prior images, then or show the prior results, then we can also enable here this button. Of course, priors has to be configured as we saw this. So where we have to enter the URL, the username, the password, and the appropriate settings. And then when this button is available and the function is available, then when the customer selects a certain study, then they can click on this button, prior images, and it opens in the in the browser window the appropriate priors information related to the currently selected patient. So we can then see the history. We can then, for example, also see all the images of this patient which are on this study, on this archive, and we can use this for a comparison. Then print image button, send image button. So we can also here just select or click on this button for a study or for a selected image to just quickly to get it printed. The same also if we want to send an image manually to an archive. So if archive automation is not configured, then we use here this button, send image, to send the image to an archive accordingly. Or of course also if archive automation is enabled, but we may then later change something in an image and then want to resend this to the archive, then we can do this as well with the send image button. Okay, reference image. This is something special which is normally not needed. But for some special purposes, it may be necessary to have a reference image also for a comparison. And then, of course, the reference images have to be available in the system. And we can then enable this button to click to select this reference image. ID button, you see this is grayed out and enabled. This is a mandatory button. Then add image can also be removed. This means this would mean we have an NX workstation where we get the work list from the RIS with the appropriate protocol codes, but it is not foreseen that it is possible to add an image manually to the study. This means then, of course, that we cannot add more thumbnails just by selecting the settings from the user interface exam tree. Then it only uses that what comes from the RIS with the protocol codes. Yes, and close and send all. So this button is, of course, also one which is mandatory. It should always be possible to close a study. And that's the reason why this is enabled and grayed out. Okay, so the next part here is XRG parameters. XRG is an abbreviation which stands for X-ray generator. And here we have these 8 values possible. Some of them are already there by default, and we can also select some more if we want here from the list of the DICOM tags. So yeah, for example, if we want also to see the SID here, then we can just select this. On the whole, these values here for these parameters can either be entered manually, or if we have a system which gets this, so if we have, for example, a modality connected to the NX workstation, where it also can receive the SID value and calculate the SID value by the system, then it may also be entered automatically accordingly. Yeah, let's remove that. I do not want to have this. Yes, here the source filter value here, this is a drop-down list which can here be configured. You see by default we have this, the typical source filter combinations showing up here as it is normally in use in a MAMO modality, but we could also add some others here by selecting here a target material and a filter material, and then add this combination here also to the drop-down list. Okay, then let me also show you where we can see this then in the user interface. If I go to examination, Here, this is this black box. Here we have these XRG parameters. And you see here in this case, it is grayed out because this was an imported image. And yeah, it depends on what license we have, what system we have, whether we can enter the values manually or whether we get the values automatically when an image is acquired. And let me see, this should also change in this case when I change the image. You see, for this image we have this KV and the MAS value, but the others do not show anything here. So this depends then also on the appropriate image, what values are present here. Okay. Then view patient and edit patient and view image details, and also here edit image details. So also for all of these sections here, we have a certain number of values that can be selected for view patient. So this is what we see here on top. This is this section patient. And edit patient, second section. Here, these 8 values, we can also make here certain values as a mandatory field. So we could say the birth date should be a mandatory field. And yes, what effect do we have by this? If you are here in examination, if you click on this button, edit here, then we have here these values. And here at the moment, birth date is empty. And this means if it would be a mandatory field, of course I have not yet saved my change, so it is not yet a mandatory field, then the effect would be that this OK button is first of all grayed out, and I have first to enter a valid birth date until before I can then continue and save this change accordingly. Yeah, and then here edit for the image. So here we see the image details, the appropriate values that we have configured. And with the button edit, I get here the possibility to change the appropriate values that are configured for edit image details. Here the drop down for image comments, just to show you here in edit image details. Here we have these 8 values which are shown there on as we saw it, and we could also say this drop down for image comments should not be available here. Then in this case we remove this hook, and then it is just there is no drop down to change the image comments. Now next section, compose exam. Yes, this represents here our exam tree. You see on top here, we can first select the age group if we have a pediatric license, and if we go here, for example, to 17+, then we see these are the exams which are available for 17+. And what can we do here? So first of all, if you see here, okay, there is a certain exam not showing up here, then we may have to go first to the exam tree, go to the appropriate exam and enable here. So for example, system diagnosis, this is showing up in the exam in the user interface. Here we can remove it or show it depending what we want to have. And then here in this add image pane, we can then also change the position of this button. So we can say system diagnosis, this is something special, I want to have it here in this edge. Or maybe system diagnosis should be hidden from the user interface anyway. Then you just enable this as long as you do your tests, and then afterwards you may just remove this hook in the exam tree configuration that the normal customer does not have this button. The same also here for these buttons for the exposure types. This means if I select here, for example, lower extremities, then we see here we have these 30 buttons. This is also the limit. We cannot have more than 30. And we can also change the positions. Of course, if you have all 30 here, let me see, maybe I can change the position. No, that's not possible. So the first I would have to make some space that I can then sort them and then finally select the last button to fill the gap. If I have really 30 buttons here, so that's maybe sometimes a bit difficult to configure that we have the right positions in a certain arrangement if we have so many buttons. But if it's less, then we can just simply also drag and drop the buttons to the positions where we want to have them accordingly. Okay, and just here to show you the limits here for this, we have up to 30 buttons for the exposure types. And here, if you count, we have 7 times 3, so it's 21 for the exams. And then, of course, it may also be necessary to do the appropriate arrangement for the other age groups as it is required. Good. Last but not least, tools and annotations. So these are these 10 buttons that we see here below our preview image. And yeah, in fact, you see one of these buttons is not used at the moment, and I can go into the configuration and decide this button should have the function, yeah, for example, the TTM, the time text marker, available also for the examination. And then when I would save this, and if I click on this button TTM, then I get this pop-up with the date and time when the image was acquired, and I can put this as a marker into the image. Maybe also just to mention what functions we have here. We have here black border. This is this one. This means you can hide the black border to see what is behind our collimated, so our collimation borders. Flip should be clear. So with this, we can flip the image. By the way, when you flip an image, this will also have an effect on here the view position. You see here, this image is now PA. If I click on flip, the image is of course flipped. Left and right side changes. Of course, there is no square markers visible in this image. So this may, of course, also be helpful to avoid that we mix something up. But it also changes here the view position. You see AP. It was before it was PA, and so this is also something which is just controlled by the flip function, just to avoid yeah, any kind of mix-up and misdiagnosis. Then what else do we have? We have freehand rotate available here if we have the license. Then full screen mode, so we could also select here full screen mode. Then we have this symbol. Then we can get also the full screen mode applied for the images when we are in editing. Then high priority. This is this star symbol, which changes also the priority of the image, which has a certain effect then also when it is, for example, forwarded to an archive. Then here markers for MAMO. Then the left marker, of course, orthogon measurement. So this means when we have the orthogon software available, you see here it says no license available. Of course, then we cannot select this, and it would not allow to use the function if you have no license for this. Then, yeah, some more markers. Revert to original. This is this symbol. Rotate clockwise, counterclockwise. This is what we have here. This is counterclockwise in this case. And then, last but not least, the time text that I explained already. So I would now suggest let's now have a break, and then finally continue with the editing settings also to complete this story. And are up till now, do you have any questions? So if not, then let us now enjoy the break, and in 15 minutes, let's then continue with the last section of the user interface configuration. So, okay, I hope everyone is ready. Then we may just directly continue here in the editing settings. So yes, also here we have, of course, these buttons that we can configure. But first here, this function for the default view, show image by default in normal mode or by default in print mode. Here we can select this, and we can also hide the normal mode and print mode button if we want. The default is, of course, that we have first the image in normal mode, and then if you want to print it, we can go to the print mode. And so it makes sense that we have this selection typically. Then enable touch mode. Yes, you see, we can enable the touch mode. This, of course, makes sense if you have a touch screen or if a system where we have only a touch screen. The reason is when we are here in editing with this normal mode, so not in the touch mode, then these buttons are in this size. And yeah, you may imagine this is a bit small for use with the finger on the touch screen. And so with this enabling the touch mode, these buttons become larger, and then it's just easier to use it with the touch screen. There is just one thing you should know with this touch mode. This is here, this adjust window level function. So let me first demonstrate here the adjust window level function in the normal mode. So with this, I can do it with the mouse. I click on this button. Then when I move my mouse over the image with a vertical position, you see this is what how it changes, and also with the horizontal position there is the appropriate change. And so I can then search for a proper position where I can see the details in the image as I want to have it. So here this in this horizontal movement, it is more a kind of change of the contrast. A vertical movement is the brightness, similar to brightness. So it's not exactly that. You will learn this also in the application part, what's the real functionality in window and level. And so if I have found my proper position that I want to have, then I can just click again, and then it is now fixed to this position. And you see also the window level has been changed accordingly. I can revert this with this button. And yes, if we are in the touch mode, then yes, I have no mouse. I can only move with my finger over the screen. And so in this case, it acts a bit different, especially I have no right mouse button where I can finish and fix my position. This means for this, it is then, so simply it's a bit more difficult to use this window level function. So it is not always reasonable to change to this touch mode to have larger buttons, because you would lose also the possibility to use window and leveling in a way that it works well. So there are possible ways then also to use it in the touch mode. With the space bar, you can also stop the function, but yeah, it's more difficult, and so that means it's not always reasonable to change to the touch mode. Okay, then the buttons. Yes, external application should be clear, then reject, unreject as well. CATH, so if you have the license, if it is configured accordingly in the exam tree, here we can then enable the button to have this function, to use this function. Yes, save as new. What does this do? This is the function where I can make a copy of an image. This means if I have an image where I want to measure several things, and I need also to calibrate for every measurement, then I may have to make first a copy of or more copies of an image to have the possibility to calibrate for one measurement, calibrate in the other image for another measurement, and so on. Then print sheet. Yeah, if the image is ready for printing with this button, I can then just trigger that it will be printed, send images, send the image manually to the archive, and close and send all. It's the button to close the study and to do the all appropriate automation. This means also send it to the archive if configured accordingly, or also print it out automatically. So next part here, soft copy and print view. Here we have several parameters that we can configure, such as window and leveling. Here we could also select, for example, the deviation index or the EI value. You see also there is LGM. Of course, this only makes sense if you have an LGM NX workstation. On the other hand, if it's configured for EI from activation on, then we should, of course, select EI instead. And yeah, we have here up to 4 values plus another value, which is the true scale factor. And in the editing, this is showing up here in this. So we see it's a bit small, but here we can see the window and level of the current selection, which is by default in Musica 2 and 3. When the image arrives and it was processed, it's by default normally 50 and 50. And yes, it's a bit different in Musica 1. We will see this also a bit later then. And yes, the percentage here in the normal view is always 0, because this only applies if you are in the print mode. Then I can just put here my sheet, put an image into it, and now you see it's 100. So this is true scale. I could also click on this button and if I zoom in and out, then you see it changes. And with this button, I can go back to the true scale. So, okay, last but not least, here our tools and annotations. You see, most of these tools are also here switched on, but I will switch on all of them, because I want to show you everything in the user interface. And let me just simply activate this.
Andreas, quick question.
Yes.
If you want to give the customer the option to annotate themselves and write a text, where would that be?
Yeah, let me just activate and then I can show it to you.
Okay.
So in fact, we can already have a look here. In the annotations drop down, we have this drop down with the predefined text, and there is also the free text annotation.
Okay, yeah.
So you can where is it? It should also be somewhere here
on the 4th line.
Yeah, here free text. So
yeah.
This needs to be enabled, of course, and then yeah, you see again malware found always when I start my user when I start my NX. Okay, so it seems to be related to the NX application. Abdella, have you already seen that problem with this found some malware in Windows Defender on the NX? So okay, then let's have a look at editing. Yes, here we have this drop down for the annotations. We have this predefined texts which can be configured. We saw that this is in the general configuration. And if we click here on this symbol, then we can enter our text as we want to have it. And it just needs to be enabled. And it is also a function which is in all licenses just as a default available. You can also configure you saw it had a certain size. This was 10 millimeters. This can also be configured as the default, and you can then also change the size.
Is this on the basic license?
This is yes, this belongs to the base license. So you have this free text annotation always possible and available, and these configurable predefined texts is an extra license which could also be disabled. You can also go into the configuration and disable this if it is not required. So this is not a part of all base licenses, but most of the base licenses meanwhile also allow to have this predefined texts included.
Okay, thanks.
So, okay, then, yes, what I want to show you now, this is just simply everything that we have here in the toolbar, one by one, from the top to the bottom. At the top here, we have this select function, and so by default, we have this enabled, and we can just select any object in the image. This is revert to original, and you saw I have just entered here this annotation. If I revert to original, then in this case, the original is that a status of the imported image. So here we have also an annotation. I could also remove this, for example, here, but this delete. And if I revert to original, it comes here back. Of course, if you have an image acquired on the NX workstation, then the original image is the image as it comes from the DR detector or from the CR digitizer, and as it is displayed directly after image processing. Yeah, okay, this should be clear so far. You can also use here the right mouse button, for example, to yes, if we talk about here this annotation, I could also delete this or select the color with the context menu. And we have here this drop down for the color where I can change the color also here if it is configured. And of course, I have switched it on to show it. Okay, then next section here, all annotations and graphical elements. We have here the buttons left and right separated if it is enabled. And we have here this drop down for all markers, so left and right, of course, as well here, high priority, TTM, and so on, as it is configured to be available. Then here our drop down for the annotations. The first one is the free text, the others are the predefined texts. Then yes, here the graphical elements. We have here, for example, the possibility to draw an arrow. I can just point with my arrow here to this and say, look here, something like that. So I can enter the text. I can change the position and the size if I want. Then here, next thing is a rectangle. I can draw a rectangle around the heart, like this. Yes, and what you see here also, this is that it also calculates here the area of this rectangle that I have drawn. Of course, this area is that what we have in the image. This means this is what results on the detector layer. If so, this means this is if you want to have the real size, then of course we may also apply first a calibration. Then it will also be applied on this calculation accordingly. Then here a grid. We can also draw a grid here, maybe in this rectangle if I want. There is also here, this is the grid ratio. See, 3 centimeters, and I could also double click here and could say, no, I want to have it every 2 centimeters. then it changes also accordingly. Then draw a circle. We saw that already. Oh, but this was too quick. Okay, yeah. 1 point, another point, and point number 3. Also here we get the diameter and also the area which is covered by this circle. Now let me revert to original. Now it becomes a bit confusing to have, if you have too many things in the image. Then here these two tools, draw a polygon or draw a so-called freehand. So the polygon is clear. We have to click the start point and then one point after another. To close it, you have to click on the start point again. So then it is completed. And then we have here also the area with the so-called freehand. This is also some kind of polygon, but it's a rubber line polygon. So it's not a real freehand line where I just press my mouse button and then draw and draw and draw. That's not the case. Also here, I click on the points and I may just do it on the same positions as my polygon. Then you can see this is then finally the result. So this is how this works. I can also change my points manually afterwards if I want, and I have here also the area. Yes, then draw a perpendicular. So I may just draw first the reference line from here to here, and then I can, for example, see is the spine upright or is there any tilt in the patient, something like that. So then yes, draw a single line from start point to end point. That's easy. And here these two tools, PVI and EI. Here we can measure in the image the pixel value. This is the PVI tool, and the EI value which results from that. So this means I can, if I click on it, then I get here this square. I can move it, and I get here the appropriate mean PVI log value. So here in a darker area, it is of course a bit higher. You see, like this, and if I go here, then the value becomes lower. Then the same for EI. Here it is, EI. Also the same. We have here this square. I can, by the way, I can also change the size of this. That's not what I wanted. This is rotate. I want, yeah, okay. You saw it is also possible to rotate this. But here with this controls, I can change also the size accordingly. If I click in this edge, then it goes to rotate. Should go, it doesn't go. Yeah, okay, so it's a bit difficult here with the remote connection. Then EI, the same. Also here I can change the size of my rectangle, and I have here the mean EI value of this area. In darker areas, it's higher. In brighter area, it's lower. And can be helpful for troubleshooting. So, for example, if the customer complains, the image is always too dark or something like that, then you can first of all look what is the resulting PVI value. And does it also what comes out as the EI value? And yeah, this can be, of course, helpful for this. Sometimes it is also needed when you verify your system. So maybe to see is the sensitivity of the digitizer correct, or is there something faulty? Then, so this were these graphical elements and these two measurement tools. Then here the other measurement tools. Here, of course, when I draw here, for example, if I measure here between this point and that point, then I see this is the result, but you have to know this is in fact yes, not the true size, because we have this magnification factor And this phantom, you see, it is a phantom, it's not a real patient, was of course on top of the table and had a certain distance to the detector. And this means if we want to have the real size of this measurement, then we have to apply our calibration function first. So let's assume we have here something in the image where we know the real size, and it is also this element that where we know the real size is in the same layer as here the distance between these ends of the bones here. Then as I could then apply the appropriate calibration. Let me try. Maybe we know what we have from here to here. And this is, let's say, this is 15 centimeters. I exaggerate a bit, of course. Yeah, now I have here this bar, which indicates that now a calibration is applied on this image. That what I measured before is not relevant anymore, so it is put into brackets. Now I can again measure this distance from here to here, and here I get then the new result. Of course, you see I have really exaggerated very much, and it of course after the calibration this value will be lower. And it also is indicated by CAL in brackets that this is now the calibrated result. Okay, with the circular calibration, it is similar. Of course, then you need a round object in the right position, and you have to also to know its diameter. Then you draw the circle around it, you enter the diameter, and then you have also a calibration applied. This one is grayed out because in this system we have no SID known by the NX. Then, of course, here next tool is to measure an angle. In fact, we just simply draw two lines, and then it shows the angle between these two lines. You see, we have two values because depending on how we see it, it can be seen from the one side or from the other side, and so we have these two values, therefore. Then, of course, the linear measurement, we saw that already. Leg length difference, yeah, so this is then, as the name says, normally foreseen to measure the leg length or to compare the leg length between left and right side. You should also draw a reference line. Then here you go maybe to the knee of the one leg and to the knee of the other leg. Also, let's exaggerate. Then you see there is now a difference of 20 millimeters in this case. And yes, scoliosis is also nothing more than an angle measurement. So you measure here, for example, this vertebra and this vertebra, and then you can place here the angle between these two lines. So it's nothing more than a measurement of an angle. You see it, and if this tool is available, then the customer can, of course, just simply use it as it is required. Okay, so these were these measurements. Then, yes, we saw already this color drop down, then flip and rotate. Let me first switch on the square marker in this image. You see, at the moment it is switched off. Then I click on square marker, and here it is now showing up. If I zoom out, then I can see this is the square marker. So this image has already been flipped because otherwise it would be on this position. Yeah, then if I rotate, you see my image rotates by 90 degrees. And also the square marker should follow accordingly. Yeah, in this case, we have here this borders here. That's why the square marker is not always visible. If I rotate counterclockwise, then it goes back. Then I flip the image. Then you see also the square marker follows accordingly. And here this is my freehand rotate. I have now made some changes on this image. Also for freehand rotate, if you have an imported image, then the imported status will be considered as the original. This means especially here, this annotation will remain. So proceeding will undo all changes. Yes. Now I have it. Unfortunately, my annotation is here. I would expect that it is then here. Yeah, okay, strange, but okay, doesn't matter. Now I make here the rotation. I want to have it like this. Then when I click on accept, then it takes a few seconds to recalculate the whole pixel matrix, and then I have here this result. So obviously this flip function that I applied is not affected by the freehand rotate, because this was just reproduced without changing it back. Okay, so yeah. But you see, it's strange if you have an imported image with an annotation, because then this will still be there, and the annotation itself will not rotate. Yeah, so of course, it is foreseen, of course, for the normal workflow where we have an acquired image on this NX workstation, and then this strange things will not happen. So, okay, then the zoom here. This button is switched to full screen. Then you see this image in full screen. With this arrow, I can go to the next image in the study, and again, or back. And I can also apply here my mouse functions like zoom. Yes, add a left marker here with the right mouse button. I have also here some markers or rotate functions available. Zoom in, zoom out. Yeah. And yeah, with this button, I can go back to the normal view. Then what else? Here the split view. Yeah, on the left side, it shows that image that I have currently selected, and I can put the other image. No, sorry, that's wrong. I have then to drag and drop here the other image that I want to have here, and then I can also separately zoom in and out or whatever I want to do. Then here yes, here the zoom functions. I can zoom out and in just with these buttons, or I use my mouse wheel for yeah, controlled zoom accordingly. Then reset zoom. This makes a reset to the original zoom factor of this image, and zoom to a region of interest. Maybe let's first switch off the split view. Yeah. Also here. And then I want to zoom to a region of interest. This can be done here with this, just by drawing a rectangle. I have to put my start point here and maybe here the end point, and then it zooms here. What you see is also here this black border, which, or this, yeah, in this case, it's more like a shutter. If I zoom in and out then afterwards, then you see this black shutter will remain on this position. So yeah, of course the customer needs also a bit to know how to deal with that to have the right result that they want to have. And yes, here these are manual shutters. If I switch that on, then I have here my white frame, and with this I can move here the shutters accordingly. And also for this function, if I make transparent shutters, so if I enable transparent shutters and maybe change it to semi-transparency of 50% or something like that, then also these shutters will be appropriately semi-transparent. So I can also switch that off. And let's go back. Yeah, you see, just interesting to see flip of an image has no effect also with my revert to original. So if I flip my image, this is something which will stay fixed in the system. Then image processing. Yes, now maybe let's first go to a different study. I use typically this one to show all these image processing functions. So what we see here now, this is an image processed with Musica 1 or yes, acquired on a system where Musica 1 was in use. This means then you have to disable Musica 2 and 3 in the licenses, or you need an old version of NX which only contains Musica 1. Then you have here this result. If you have selected a linear curve for the grayscale representation and yes, moved the processing to 0, this is then represents in this case the raw image as it comes in from the device where we acquire the image. So yeah, this means this is if you look at this image, it contains certain information, but there is not very good contrast, and also the brightness is not very nice. This means if you have Musica 1, then you need to know how to deal with that, because Musica 1 does not automatically optimize the image already. So this needs to be done then more or less manually. What we can do in this case, we can yes, we can first of all we can switch on the histogram, and in Musica 1 the histogram looks like this. Let's put it first into the middle to see a bit better. We have here yes, this is the histogram which represents the amount of grayscale pixels depending on the grayscale value. Here, these two lines indicate the current selection of window and level, which is then on this end it is black, on this end it is white. Everything is which is beyond is then in clipping. This means there is no difference visible, especially here for these pixels. They are all black then in this case. So there is then also a bit of loss of information in the display of the image. Yes, then here we see this is the sensitometric curve. It is currently a linear is selected. And so this is the histogram, first of all. Then let's have a look at the Musica parameters. If I click on this button, then it shows here, yes, the parameters. And in Musica 1, we have here these 6 parameters plus here this sensitometric curve to select. And you see Musica contrast is at 0, which indicates that we have the more or less switched off the processing. So it's now processing and it is linear. That's represents more or less the raw image. So there is no change made by the image processing in this selection. And yes, now what can we do with Musica 1? We can say I want now to have a different sensitometric curve is used to have a better result. Then let's look at this example. So this is exactly the same image, but now linear sensitometric curve. It uses the sensitometric curve E25. You see here, this is the sensitometric curve. Everything else is the same. So you see, if we compare this with that image, we can already see a bit more in the image. Also here, for example, this these are the, I don't know the English word, in the lungs here, the appropriate tubes or where the air flows. And here we can also see this a bit, but not so good. And then if you go to this curve, this is NK5. Yeah, I would suggest this is better than this one. And here we have RP1KT. This is also a bit dark. Contrast is not so bad, but I would still say this one is the best one for this purpose. And then if we continue here to this image, this is again the same image, with the yes, now with E25, but additionally also, and we can see this if we switch on again here, this window with the musical parameters. Here the musical contrast has been moved to 6 instead of 0, and this means we have then also here the appropriate result that we see yes, the image resulting with the appropriate details that we want to see. Yes, this is then still Musica 1, and this means if you use Musica 1, then you have really to know how to deal with these parameters. You have always, when you get an image, and if you want to see something, then you have to change the parameters until everything is like that what you want to have. Now, if you compare this image with this image, this is again exactly the same image, but just simply processed with Musica 2. What we also see here, this is that the histogram, the display of the histogram changes. Here we have in Musica 1, we have this densitometric curve, we have this bar with the grayscale values and the window and level selection and the histogram, of course. Here we just see the histogram as a white area, and everything else is removed, because in Musica 2 this is not needed, because Musica 2 automatically analyzes the image and then makes the settings of the image processing automatically in that way that we have such a result, which is similar to that what we see here in Musica 1 with full processing E25. And so, yes, you see this is for the customer, for the user, it's much easier to have to use it with Musica 2, and also Musica 3 is of course also similar. Where also a few more features have been added. Just that you understand a bit how these different parameters can be applied here. Yes, what else could be interesting? This is here, let's close the histogram. This burn function, or we may also switch on the histogram, because then maybe in Musica 1 instead, if I switch on this burn function, yes, what we can see here, that is everything which is here outside of the collimated area appears now suddenly, instead of black, it comes up in white. And it's in fact, maybe also here this example would be better. Okay, the burn function can be switched on for each image separately. Yeah, you see here, if I switch on the burn function for this original image, so which represents the raw image, then here we have an area which is in the image completely black, and we have here also a loss of information. This means these are these pixels which are here distributed in outside of the window and leveling. And also, if you then use the window level function, then you see the burn function indicates everything which is in clipping by black or white, depending on which side of the histogram we have the clipping, and we can mess the image completely up if we do not know what we are doing. Without burn function, it looked like this, and this means the burn function can also be helpful to switch it on when you use a window level changes, to see, okay, is that area that I want to see, is there something in clipping? If not, if so, then you may again change the window and leveling until you have it in a position that you say, okay, that's what I want to have. Of course, here additionally, of course, the appropriate settings of the image processing in Musica 1 need to be done to have then finally a proper result. So, okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
When all pictures too dark, can I save the histogram for the pictures? Or when the customer have the Musica 1 and all pictures?
Not really. You can. What you can do is, of course, you can show the histogram of the current selection and of the current settings. Make a screenshot and save this as a picture. but you cannot save the histogram as a file or something like that. So that's not foreseen. This would be interesting. You're right, but it's not.
So the customer
okay.
must every picture.
Yeah. So either they just, if they have it showing up like this, maybe also with presenting here also the selected Musica parameters, that they just then make a screenshot of this display and save this as a JPEG file, and then you can also maybe try other settings and again make a screenshot and then compare.
Okay, thanks.
Andreas, in the exposure parameter in the NX configurator, there was some parameter to adjust. It was not included inside? You showed yesterday.
The exposure parameters, you mean this?
No. Check the NX configuration tool, please. It was where is
exam?
I think exam and
exposure settings. Target exposure index. What do you mean?
No. It was in the part where you can choose the license. For example, Musica 3 or Musica 2. You know.
Yeah. Okay. Manage licenses. Here we have these parameters for the Musica, and so here we could switch off certain. For example, if we have here. Yes, if we have here packages which are not needed, then we could switch them off, the licenses. But what maybe you take over?
Okay,
you have access to this annex?
I will check first in a workstation, then I let you know what is exactly the part.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So okay. The last thing that I want to show you here is invert images. Maybe let's do it with this one. If I click this button, then it inverts the image. So typically, normally we have white bones, dark background, and if you invert, then the bones are darker than the soft tissue. So this is the inversion. This means if you have these images in this inverted way arriving at an archive, for example, then you may have selected the wrong. So monochrome 1 or you made maybe the wrong choice between monochrome 1 and monochrome 2. Otherwise, of course, if the customer wants to have it like this, then it may also be correct, of course. So this button is grayed out because this relates just to this more or less the collimation function in a MAMO image. Let me just double check, just not to tell you something wrong. If I go to my tools and annotations, this is an image processing. Yeah, I may have also to double check this background darkening. I suppose this is this background darkening and this belongs to MAMO. Yeah, but I will double check this and maybe in the lunch break, just that I tell you the right things. Okay, last but not least here, my collimation. So here, now the image is automatically collimated. It just detects the collimation borders and draws here the appropriate. Yes, in this case, it uses a polygon in the background and then applies here the appropriate collimation. And I can switch that off with apply edit collimation, or I can also just hide the collimation border, which does not remove the collimation, but it just switches off my collimation border. You see here, these are the real ends of my image, and here I have the collimated area, which appears light gray or white, also with some transparency. So no collimator is blocking the radiation by 100%. That's why we can still see here something in this image. Now I switch on my collimation border again. Then I remove my automatic collimation by clicking on this button, and then I can just draw here, for example, my own collimation or border. Let's use here the circle. 1, 2, 3 points. Then I want to invert this. This means my circle is now selected as also. This means if I click now on my inversion, you see this line. This indicates that this collimation area is inverted. I may also change the size a bit.
Andreas?
Yes?
I have a question. Is it possible to see the acquisition parameters of skip IP MEIS in this visualization?
Sorry, I did not really get it. Let me just.
Because
first I have to finish here. So I apply my collimation. Then you can see this is the result. Should be good enough to understand this. Then I remove it. I delete this, and now let's try. So again, what is your question? I did not really get it.
The acquisition parameter is possible to see in the biases for the impression of packs.
So the acquisition parameters, this means, do you talk about KV and MAS value?
Yes.
Yeah.
But to see this in the impression.
So here, if we are looking at the image to see this acquisition parameters, yeah, this is in fact these parameters are written into DICOM tags. If you enter this, of course, in this case, it's not possible because this image was imported. So if we have here, for example, this KV parameter in this DICOM fields, then we can see it here, but it's not foreseen that this is displayed also in the editing.
Because in mammography, it's necessary to see this parameter in the impression of the exam.
Yeah, okay.
On mammography.
Yeah, so the only way I would see to have this done is if you just if you have these parameters, that you then add this, for example, as an annotation somewhere in the border of the image. This is
okay. How text, free text?
Sorry?
I need to agree the parameter how free text.
Yeah. This means you would then add the annotation as a free text. So if you, for example, here in editing, click on this one, then you can add here, for example, KVP 75 and MAS 20, something like that, and then you have this as an annotation in the image. If this is, of course, this is not very comfortable for the user, but if they need this as an showing up in this image, then they can just simply add this as an annotation. But it's not foreseen that it is automatically displayed in the image. This would be a feature. We could make a feature request, of course, and ask R&D make this possible. This is then maybe a new license which can be added. But currently this is not foreseen.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Andreas, sorry.
Yes.
Okay, speaking. I think you can find what I mean in the general image presentation. but I'm not sure if this will be the solution for Nadine, because the brightness and contrast parameter can be adjusted here. I think they have the same influence, like
brightness, contrast, sharpness. I forgot one thing to show you. If I'm here in Musica 2 or Musica 3, the same, and I show here the Musica parameters, then you can see here we have contrast, brightness, sharpness. So in Musica 2 and 3, there are not so many different parameters as it is the case in Musica 1. We have here only, we can select the package of the image processing. We can change contrast, brightness, and sharpness, which is by default always 0. And yes, if required, then we can of course increase the contrast. See a bit the result in the image, because here preview is selected and switched on. If I reduce also then the brightness, and I can also change the sharpness, where you can most probably not see very much difference, because this is then of course also I may have to zoom in for this, that you can see it. But yeah, so this is the these are the only functions that we have, and this is also enough. Additional then to the window and level, which is a separated story. And yeah, so in fact, these are the parameters that we have in Musica 2. And I cancel this. I don't want to change it. Typically, normally, it's now not necessary to change these parameters, because if the image processing works well and if the image has the right information, then it can be analyzed and optimized by the Musica 2 accordingly, so that there is no need to change the parameters. But of course, if you have the situation that the radiographers always desire for one specific exposure type, that they have more contrast, for example, then it would be a possible way to go to this section here and to change, for example, for the abdomen package, the appropriate setting of contrast, brightness, or sharpness by selecting here, then entering here the new values or selecting them. So maybe increase the contrast by 2 points and store this. Then it is written. It is also stored here, and then all exposure types which use this package will have this change then for the future. This means we have then, of course, to make sure that it does not change it for everything, and if it's only needed in some specific exposure types. So this is then of course also important that it is done in the right way, and it should not be just done by default to change everything anyhow. And first, the customer should have a look, is everything as required? And if there are certain things where they need some improvement, then this can be fine adjusted here. And on the other hand, here, when they have the license also to use here these parameters, then they can, of course, individually for each image make some fine-tuning as it is required.
Maybe I can take your question to Wolfgang tomorrow. He is the application specialist. Maybe have another idea.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So, okay. This means now we have seen everything here in the user interface. What you may also have to learn then in the future, we are here with a normal instant DR license, where we have only worklist, examination, editing, and main menu. If you have a 4.0 system and also the modality connected, for example, if you are dealing with a DR800, then there is typically another section here. This is acquisition. So we have then worklist, examination, acquisition, editing, and main menu. And in the acquisition function, we have then also several additional things available. But this is something you will learn then step by step in the future when you get, for example, an application training for DR800 or also an service training for DR800. Then you will learn this also in more details. Now, just to complete here what we can see and find in the user interface, I have explained everything here in the work list already. The same, I would say, also in the examination. I just double check, just not to forget anything. Image, here we have something. So if I select this hook, then you see that this image, what happens here? That's new. I do not know that. Abdella, do you know what's about this this hook here?
Not known for me, no.
Yeah, okay. So then we also have to learn it maybe first of all before we can explain it. And maybe you will encounter it then also in the future if you are in the special training, which knows already but the trainer already knows how to use this and what it is for. Okay, but that's should be also clear. Is this also, this is only in examination, yeah, you see, okay. Then if you go, or also in editing, okay. Then here in editing, yes, we saw also already a bit the print mode. I think most things are self-explanatory and can also be found in the documentation for the details. Then last but not least, here in the main menu, yes, I have already explained this button log off and exit NX. Also this button help. I hope, yeah, here.
Andreas, there is maybe a question from Mohammed. You can take it over.
Ah, yeah, okay. Mohammed?
Andrea, in the section where we see the information about patient.
This is here, yes?
Yes. For the KV and the MAS, do we get them automatically from the modality, or we can enter them, or?
So this depends on what license you have and what system you have. Of course, if you have an NX workstation using InstantDR with no connection to the modality, it is clear we cannot get it automatically. Then it is maybe necessary to enter this. So let me just try to show this. If I'm here at one of my images, then here I have the possibility to enter the KV value manually and also the MAS value, something like that. And then this will also be stored in the appropriate DICOM tag for this image. If I have a modality connected to the system where the NX and also the appropriate soft console can see what parameters have been selected for the acquisition of the image, then it is possible to get this also then entered automatically in the appropriate DICOM tags. So that's the story here behind that. You need, of course, the right system that it either is coming in automatically or you have to enter it manually. Good, then let's continue here in the main menu. So yes, the buttons log off was explained. So with this, if you have more than one user, then we can click on log off to make it possible to quickly log on with the other user and to have the NX workstation available as quick as possible. So it's then maybe 30 seconds instead of 3 minutes. Exit NX will stop the user interface, and then I have to restart it if I want to have it again. The help button, you see in my case, it doesn't work, unfortunately, because the help function, the online help was not installed properly. But of course, it makes sense if you, for example, upgrade to a new version, that you then also make sure that it is that the online help is installed correctly. This means you need the best thing is if you have this the new version on a USB stick. So this upgrade kit on a USB stick, then you have also the possibility to install it. Then desktop, with this we just...
Andreas, if you connect to the NX workstation ET4, the help button is working there.
Yeah, okay. Then maybe let me show that. 84. Yeah, okay, here it is. Yeah, so this is then how it looks like. We have here this different manuals as links in the browser window. So this is for the normal user manual of the NX. Here the user manual of the central monitoring system. Then manuals for mammography. There are different versions. You see, this is one. This one is for China. Then full leg, full spine user manual for CR. And yeah, here the manual for the music acquisition workstation control center. And now also a bit newer here, the user manual for Lunit and IBEX. So these are these artificial intelligence tools which are used with this so-called smart box that can be connected to the NX workstation. You can install the appropriate software modules for Lunit or IBEX on it, and then configure it in that way that when you make, for example, for chest images, it uses Lunit to see or to analyze these chest images for possible lung diseases. And if this is the case, if it detects a potential lung disease, it will just indicate this accordingly also in the system. I hope I have no lung disease, but I'm just suffering a bit with my lungs at the moment. Okay, then yeah, okay. So these are the manuals. I suppose if I click here on this user manual for NX, then yeah, this is not the normal view. So obviously also here there is something missing. Let's try if I go, for example, here to so I have here just the table of content, and I can select here, for example, CR workflow, identifying the cassettes. Let's see what happens. Yeah, you see then it gets red. I can see an image or 2 or 3 images, but not the text. So there is still also something missing. So it was installed a bit better than on NX80, but not perfect. Okay. I just get out of this NX and come back to my NX80. Okay, then yeah, let's also complete here these functions. Let's start here with the queue management. So queue management, the purpose of the queue management is to show, is there anything still yes, waiting for being forwarded and processed, either if it is something to be sent to an archive or MPPS, or also for printed sheets. So for example, if you create a print sheet, if you send this to the printer, but the printer is not available, maybe switched off or too busy or whatever, then this print job will be shown here in the appropriate list. And then if you add more or execute more print jobs, they will be collected here in this list, unless they are already completed. So when these print jobs will then be sent successfully to the printer, they will also disappear here from the queue accordingly. And so with this queue management, you can just double check, is everything up and running, or is it maybe still waiting to be executed? You can also, if you have some jobs here in the list, you can also stop the execution, mark one of them and delete it. If you want to retry, or if you just give up, then you can also do this accordingly here in the queue management. Then we saw already delete exam. We can only delete closed exams. This means we may first have to close them if we want to delete them here. And yes, lock sessions, I demonstrated this here. For this, I can also unlock by just clicking this button again, then it is unlocked, and which protects protects the appropriate studies from this automatic deletion. It has no effect for the manual deletion. So if you lock a session, you can still close the session and then also delete it manually. So the lock to lock a session is only for this automatic cleanup. So next thing, read and initialize cassette. Let me try if this works. For this, I have to put a cassette into my ID tablet. And yesterday it worked. I suppose it should also work today. But I have made some changes in the configuration, and always when you save the configuration, it may be necessary first also to get the ID tablet connected better. Let's see. Yeah, okay, it works. You see, if I click on read, then I have here as information that what is written currently in that chip of this cassette. So I can see, for example, what could be interesting. Yes, what erasure dose was applied in the last erasure. Also the sensitivity, on which processing station was the scan made. It is now in the status erased. The usage count says this image plate has been scanned 326 times since it was initialized, which was in 2019. So all these values can be found here, and with this, this can also be helpful for maybe for some troubleshooting if you encounter something is not correct. Then yes, here plate type. This is the sensitivity code of this image plate. This means if you have a cassette with an image plate, and if there are image quality problems, one possible reason could be that here the wrong plate type has been selected. So the sensitivity code for an image plate is measured when the image plate is produced. So they do this in production. And in fact, in this powder IPs that we typically use in such digitizers like the CR35, when they are produced, there is a big lot where they produce several square meters of that plate type, then cut them into pieces and prepare them until they have the final image plates, and all of them will then have the same sensitivity. This depends just on the material which will be put into the or which is used for the production of the image plates. And so it's the mixture of this material, of the sensitive material, and then they print this sensitivity code on the rear side of the image plate, and by this you can see, okay, this is the sensitivity, and you have to compare this with this plate type which is written into the chip. So if you would mix up the cassettes and the image plates between each others, if you have a cassette with a plate with sensitivity code 38 inside, and there is another cassette with sensitivity code 28, for example, then you just swap the image plates when they are being cleaned, for example. Then the result is that both cassettes have the wrong image plates with the wrong sensitivity inside. And so that what is written in the chips is not matching to that. And so here you can double check this. You can look on the rear side of the image plate what plate type is mentioned there. So it is called code 38 then in this case, and then you see here, okay, here it also says in the chip 38, then it's correct. Now what can happen is that you have a cassette with an image plate where you have a damage. It was maybe there was a jam in the digitizer, the image plate was buckled and maybe also scratched anyhow, and you have then artifacts as a result, then the only way to get rid of the problem is to replace this image plate. You can order it as a spare part, and then yes, you get just simply the image plate. The cassette is still good. You can reuse the cassette, but the image plate needs to be replaced. Then when you throw out the defective one and put in the new one, you have again to look what is the sensitivity code, and if it is different, then you have to change this here. This means you read the chip, you change the plate type to the new one. If a new plate is used, you may also reset the usage count to 0, because then you can see this new image plate has now been used so often. And yes, and then if you click initialize, this new value will be written into the chip. This is all that we can change here with this tool. We will then later today see there is also a service tool available where you can also change more. This could be, for example, the case if you have a cassette with a defective chip. It is also the chip is available as a spare part. You can replace this, and then of course the new chip is empty, no data written yet there, and then you may have to initialize this chip with the appropriate data, and this can be done with this other service tool that we will see this afternoon. Yeah, okay, that's the read cassette story. Then view all image attributes. I mentioned that already. So of course I have first to select an existing image. Let's use this one. Then I go to the main menu and click on view all image attributes. Then here we see this is the image that I have currently selected. And here I have the list of all DICOM tags. We have here 3 sections, or 3 filters. The one is SPS. So this is the data which belongs to this study. Then we have here exposure. So this is the image, the data which belongs to this particular image, which was created when the image was acquired. And we have patient data. So this is the patient demographics separated into an extra section, because this is the sensitive data which needs to be protected, and where we have to take care that we anonymize an image, for example, before we provide this for an analysis in troubleshooting. And yeah, let's look at exposure in particular, because here we see certain values which can also be helpful for troubleshooting if you have an image quality problem. So what we can see here, for example, this is the cassette size, which can be helpful in CR if you have some lines in the image, because with these lines in the image, you first have to identify, are these lines in slow scan direction or in fast scan direction. So the slow scan direction is the movement of the image plate when it is scanned, and fast scan, this is the movement of the laser spot which scans this image plate line by line. And depending on the cassette size, it can also be you have to know that. Then of course, if you want to analyze this, what cassette it is, from which system it comes, which is also visible here. If we scroll down, then we see that we have here a device serial number, which yes, we have PB, this stands for Peisenberg, then 5160, this is the detector, the digitizer type. In this case, it is, I suppose, a DXM, and then the next digits are the serial number. And so with this, you can see, okay, it was scanned in this device. We have this cassette format, we have lines in a certain direction, and by this information we can then find out this is a slow scan or fast scan, which is then also the information that we need to decide, okay, it must be this, maybe it's dust in the system, but if the lines are in fast scan direction, it must be something else. Then here, detector description, needle. I did not talk about the difference between powder IPs and needle IPs yet. Maybe if you have already seen the web-based training for DR detectors, there is also a similar distinguishing So they also in DR we distinguish between GOS detectors and CSI detectors. And maybe you have seen that already. CSI detectors, there the sensitive material in this CSI detectors is a crystalline needles, has a crystalline needle structure, and whereas the GOS has a more or less solid structure. And so that's the difference in DR, and we also have a similar difference in CR. In CR, we also have the possibility to use needle IPs, which have this crystalline needle structure. And the advantage of needle IPs is that they have a better sharpness and a better so-called quantum efficiency. This means you receive a bit more light per dose compared to a normal the normal powder IPs. So this is the main advantage of the needle IPs, that they have the better sharpness and the better quantum efficiency. The disadvantage of a needle IP is, or we have a few disadvantages. One thing is the price. The needle IP is more expensive because it's more effort to produce them. The second thing is a needle IP is also more sensitive against mechanical stress. This means if you bend a needle IP, then these needles may break. And this of course destroys also this needle structure. This means also you cannot use a needle IP in any kind of CR digitizer. This only works if you have a movement which is straight on without moving the image plate around any curves. So that's the reason why needle IPs can only be used in DXE, DXG or DXM, and in the CR15. It would also be possible in CR10 and CR12, but this is a commercial decision that needle IPs are only foreseen for CR15. And CR35, CR85, also CR30 cannot deal with needle IPs. What else? We will then later also see needle IPs have, let's say, an irregularity in the sensitivity. In fact, each single needle has its own sensitivity, and this means for a needle IP we need a calibration file which is generated in production. Yes, and this calibration file needs to be imported in the system, that when you scan a needle IP, that this calibration data will be applied on the image to have a proper image. And the powder IPs are flexible, are cheaper, have a homogeneous sensitivity. This is the sensitivity code that we just saw before. And so these are the differences between needle IPs and powder IPs. We will later then also see this tool where you can import the calibration file of a needle IP, so this GAIN calibration file, as it is called. And yes, let's come back to the topic of here, these DICOM tags. And yes, you know already the DICOM tags, they have a certain label. They have this DICOM tag number. This is a standard. This means you can find this also in the DICOM standard documents described accordingly. Also then for each DICOM tag, we have a certain value in a certain data format. It can be integer value. It can be a text with a certain number of digits available and so on. Or characters, of course, in this case. And and for troubleshooting, here these DICOM tags of the exposure can be helpful to find out where does this come from. Is it always the same image plate, for example? There should also be somewhere the serial number of the image plate. Where is it? Oh, do not find it. Doesn't matter. Here it is, detector ID. This is in this case the serial number of the image plate. Also, what exam group was selected for the exposure type for the exposure. When was the image acquired? This is here the date, acquisition date and time. In this case, it's not available because this was an exported image where some changes were made in the data already. But normally you would also see here the acquisition date and time then in this DICOM tag. Okay, this should be enough regarding our view all image attributes. Then those monitoring, here we would typically and normally see the list of all exposures which were made also with the resulting EI values. And if we have the license, then there is also here a link for those statistics. This will be explained also in more details than by Wolfgang, I suppose. And so another possibility, if the NX collects those data and repeat and reject data, then we may also be able to export this in XML format for an external analysis. So if the customer does not have the license for statistics here for those analyses, then it may at least be possible to export acquire those records as an XML file, and then if they have an appropriate tool for the analysis, they can do this with that. Yeah, the next thing, import images. Import only possible if you have a native image and if you are logged in the CR service. For the normal customers workflow, it's not foreseen. In export, we can export native images also only if we are logged on the CR service. Otherwise, we only have JPEG or DICOM format as export formats. Then export, here it says export no data waiting because I have not enabled the export automation on this NXPC. So this means if I would enable this, then every time when I acquire an image, then it would be put into this buffer, and it would indicate here in this text how many images are waiting in the buffer. And when I then click on this link, here it is, of course, disabled because the function is not switched on. When I would click on this link with the automation enabled, then it would open the window where I can then apply I can then burn the images on the appropriate on a raw DVD to have it saved as in DICOM format. Okay, technical images. This is something for R&D, for some special tests. So normally not needed anyway. And last but not least, here these links, we can go to the service and configuration tool with this link, or start it if it is not yet started. About NX is already well known, where we see this splash screen. Then about the solution. This is if you have a DR system, because then here we see some information about the DR retrofit. And start clean screen task. This is the purpose of this is if you have a touch screen, and if you have any fingerprints on the touch screen or dust or whatever, then you want to clean it. But if you then just use a towel to clean it, you would maybe also activate some functions with the touch screen. And so with this function start clean screen task, then you have a certain time. I think it's half a minute, something like that. Sven has already activated it. I can also do it. Then you see while here it is counting down, you can clean your screen. And then when this time is gone or when it's finished, then it goes back into the normal touch functionality. Of course, only reasonable if you have a touch screen. Okay, now it's already almost 12:30. So I would now stop here and let's have the lunch break. But before we do this, again, any more questions regarding all this user interface or what we saw before in the configuration? So yes, if there is at the moment no question, then let's enjoy our lunch break. And in 1 hour, we will then continue. The next topic is then veterinary annex. That's a very short topic. And then we can go as a next step to the service tools.